Доброе утро! Вы смотрите видеоканал GameScope, с вами Ксения. Сегодня в Москву приехал известный актер, режиссер и продюсер Бен Стиллер. Россия является одной из первых остановок его международного промо-тура, посвященного релизу фильма «Невероятная жизнь» Уолтера Митти. Впервые картина была представлена осенью на кинофестивале в Нью-Йорке. Сама она также является ремейком истории 1947 года Нормана МacЛейна. В этом сюжете обыкновенный мечтатель Уолтер Митти получает шанс поменять свою жизнь. В Москве актер и режиссер примет участие в фотоколе, ответит на вопросы журналистов на пресс-конференции и даст несколько интервью. А теперь давайте посмотрим репортаж с этой пресс-конференции целиком.
Дамы и господа, доброе утро. Спасибо, что пришли. И хочу сказать, что компания «Двадцатый Век Фокс» невероятно счастлива принимать в Москве исполнителя главной роли Уолтера Митти и режиссера картины, которую вы недавно посмотрели под названием «Невероятная жизнь» Уолтера Митти. Я думаю, что я выражу мнение большинства из вас, сказав, что невероятно честное, оно очень доброе. Это замечательное развлечение для всей семьи на новогодние праздники. Для нас это крутейшее продолжение прошлогодней истории с жизнью Wiig. И даже если вы уже смотрели картину и что-то не разглядели, я настоятельно рекомендую вам посмотреть ее еще раз. Ну а теперь, не оттягивая долго общение с героем нашей пресс-конференции, я хочу еще раз поблагодарить Бена за то, что он приехал, поблагодарить его за замечательное новогоднее кино, которое он нам подарил. Пожалуйста, задавайте вопросы. Пожалуйста, первый вопрос. Ага. А у нас есть микрофон?
Скажите, возвращает амплуа гениального комика в современности, когда вы работаете над современным фильмом, и где вы комфортно чувствуете себя, за камерой или впереди? Спасибо.
Thank you. First of all, it's nice to be here in Moscow. It's my first time here, so it's very exciting to be here. And thanks for those kind words about the movies. I mean, for me, I love directing and acting, but not necessarily together. I've always wanted to be a director ever since I was a kid, since I was about 10 years old. And that was always how I saw my career going, and then acting happened. It took me in a little bit of a different direction, but for me, being a director is probably the most fulfilling part. The creative process is so full in terms of taking something from the beginning to the end. As an actor, sometimes you come in and you do your part, and you're shooting out of order, and you don't really know how it's all going to fit in with what you're doing. until you see it. So for me, directing is always been one of those most.
Спасибо большое за визит в Москву. Вы обладатель премии «Золотая малина», но у вас до сих пор нет Оскара. Вообще, как считаете, достойны ли вы получения этой награды и станет ли герой нынешней работы оскароносцем? Спасибо.
I have no idea. I mean, for me, when I make a movie, I make it for the audience, really, and for myself. When you're directing a movie, the only way you can sort of judge what you're doing is by what you think feels right, and then you take it out and you show it to the audience. So in terms of all that other stuff, it's all really, out of our control. So while it would be great and wonderful, I wouldn't refuse it. But for me, the main point of making the film is to connect with the audience.
У нас ребята с микрофонами двигаться должны быстрее. Спасибо.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
You were the director of this film, and I was wondering, when did you end it up? How do you feel? Are you happy with the result? And what makes you feel you were good at it?
Making this film, I felt very fortunate to be able to be working on this material, because I thought the script was really special, and it was very emotional, it was very real, but it was also funny too, and it didn't seem to fall into one category or another, or one genre or another. And when you work on something as a director, you put everything into it for a long period of time. It's almost like a marathon, that goes on this one's gone on for a couple of years, so you have to feel that passion for the project from the beginning, and by the time you get to the end, you feel as if you put everything into it. And in terms of feeling good about it, I feel as long as you realized in some way what you wanted to get out there. It's never completely what you imagined. Sometimes things end up being different and better than what you thought. Sometimes you don't reach where you want to get to in certain scenes, but overall, I feel very happy with the film and proud of the creative collaboration that we had with all the people who worked on it, who worked really hard on it. And at the same point, the best part is really when you can get that film out to the audience and have them connect with it and have their experience with it.
Здравствуйте, у меня два вопроса. Скажите, пожалуйста, в фильме много сцен, где требовалось усилие. Вы использовали каскадеров? И второй вопрос. Кому вы в первую очередь посоветовали посмотреть этот фильм? Взрослым или детям? Спасибо.
I think, just to answer the second part, I think the movie's hopefully for adults and for younger people too. I mean, it's really a human story. I think, for me, I related to it on a personal level. Being my own age, I know younger people have seen the movie and relate to it on another level that has to do with being, I think, a person in their generation who, for them, going out into the world and having an adventure or having a real experience is sometimes hard to do with all the social media and distractions of television, computers, video games. The actual idea of having a real experience is something that's a little bit novel to them. So that, I think, for the younger audience, the movie works on that level. For people my age, I think you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that life doesn't go on forever, and you want to take chances and go for your dream on some level. So for me, that's how the movie. It's how I relate to the movie. I did a bunch of stunts. I did whatever I felt I could do. Every time you see Walter doing something in the movie, if it's skateboarding or jumping in the ocean, it's usually a combination of the stuntman and myself. Like when you see me doing it, it's me, but on the wider shot, sometimes it's stuntman. But sometimes I would get Tom Cruise to do some stunts for me also. He wasn't busy.
Здравствуйте, Бен.
продолжая предыдущий вопрос, вы очень хорошо катаетесь на скейтборде. Может быть, вы помните, когда вы первый раз встали на скейтборд? И является ли это, например, не знаю, какое-то скалолазание частью вашей реальной жизни?
Yeah, well, I grew up in New York City, and I used to skateboard in front of my building, and so I was skateboarding from about the time I was 10 years old. I wasn't an expert or anything, but I would spend a lot of time on the board, and never stopped, really. I'd always have a board around, but so for me, getting on the board, I felt pretty comfortable, though doing the tricks or going down the mountains was a different thing, so I didn't do the tricks for real. I actually got one of the best skateboarders ever, Rodney Mullen, who invented the kickflip. That movie you see in the movie, the guy who invented it, he actually did that for me in the movie. And the mountain climbing and all that stuff in the water, I did, you know, we were out there on the glaciers in Iceland and in the ocean in the North Sea, and those were all sort of firsts for me. I haven't done a lot of mountain climbing or things like that. But I like to go in the ocean. I enjoy that. I enjoy swimming. I like to scuba dive. So, you know, I feel pretty comfortable in the ocean, but the things we were doing were just so crazy sometimes. We were waiting till the seas were really high and intentionally getting into, you know, rough situations, and that energy, I hope, translated into the movie, but definitely there were some times where it was like, this is crazy what we do here. But that's fun because we're making movies.
Здравствуйте, Пенн. Такой вопрос. В фильме есть сцены, снятые в других странах, в Исландии, в Афганистане. Были ли вы там? Снималось ли это в этих странах? Если да, что вы о них думаете?
I haven't been to Afghanistan. We shot most of the film in Iceland, for those different countries. And so we spent a number of months in Iceland, and I had a really wonderful time there. I'd never been there before we started working on the film. I went there about a year before we started shooting for the first time. It's just an incredible, dramatic place in terms of the landscapes and the weather, and the people are really great to work with there too. It's a very small country, only about 500,000 or 600,000 people in the whole country, so it's a very personal experience there, and we had a wonderful time, and I feel like that experience of going to the country really, for me, affected the movie because it was a first-time journey there for myself, and then that's what's happening to Walter. He's going out there for the first time, so we kind of shared that.
Главный герой чудесного рассказа Джеймса Тербера, он подкаблучник и неудачник. И поэтому он постоянно воображает себя то киллером, то летчиком, то успешным хирургом. Вы человек успешный и удавшийся, но с вами воображение играет подобного рода шутки иногда. Спасибо.
Yeah, I mean, I think my connection with the story and with the character that Thurber wrote, I feel, even though the character that Thurber wrote was not a very quote-unquote successful person, you don't really know what he does, he's just kind of out there, you know, running errands with his wife. But the thing that I connected with, and I feel that people can connect with, is very universal ideas that we all go through our life, no matter who we are, how successful we are, with this idea in our heads of how we see ourselves that doesn't always translate out to the world. And we all have dreams and imagine doing things that we haven't realized. And I feel that's a very relatable human thing everywhere. And for me, that's what I connected with in the story, that there's all this potential inside of Walter that he hasn't realized. You know, he had ideas of what he wanted to do when he was younger, and an idea maybe of how his life would go, and then he had to sort of got bogged down by real life responsibilities, which I think people can, you know, everybody has to do that at some point. And that idea of, you know, taking a chance and going out into the world and trying to do what you really wanted to do or dreaming about doing, for me is the universal idea behind the movie.
Здравствуйте, Бен. Как мы все знаем, некоторые актеры больше придерживаются сценария, кто-то больше импровизирует на площадке. Скажите, пожалуйста, как вы любите работать, как у вас рождаются шутки?
Well, this movie, the script was written by Steve Conrad, and I feel like he has a very specific writing style and tone, and we worked on the script for about 8 or 9 months before we started to prep the movie, so there wasn't a lot of improvisation, though sometimes there was in some of the fantasy sequences with Kristen Wiig. She's a very funny comedian. He's very good at improvising. But basically, we kind of were really going off the script most of the time. And I think when you're doing a comedy, you want to allow for improvisation. You want to allow yourself to have room to come up with something in the moment and have that energy. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be a new line. To me, it's just you're trying to find life and reality in the moment, and sometimes that comes out of just sometimes trying something new, but it doesn't always have to be coming up with a whole new set of lines. So a lot of comedies these days people do improvise a lot, and I've done movies where they improvise a lot, and that can be great. But also, if you have if the script's worked out the way it should be, then you can find humor within that too.
Скажите, Бен, вы являетесь и актером, и режиссером фильма. Насколько сложно это все совмещать? Спасибо.
It's a strange thing, acting and directing. The thing about directing is you spend a long time with the movie. You spend a long time preparing the movie, prepping it months and months before you shoot, and then you spend months and months after you finish shooting, editing and doing post-production. So really the only time where you're an actor and a director is when you're shooting the movie, which is that period in the middle, which is obviously it's a very important time, but and it goes on for a while. But you have that time when you're prepping to get ready. And so for me, I just do as much work in getting ready to get to the days of shooting, so that on the day of shooting I have enough of a plan that I know what I'm doing, that I can concentrate on being an actor as much as possible. But it's always confusing, and sometimes it's very inefficient because you have to run back and forth. Sometimes you can't be two places at once. And sometimes as an actor you get frustrated with yourself as a director. You wish you had another director who could actually direct you. Sometimes as a director you get a little frustrated, you wish you had a better actor to work with. But that's, you end up relying on your fellow actors and your crew members, and you figure out some sort of rhythm, and it becomes more of a collaborative process with everybody as you go along.
Прежде всего, Зуланда — это лучшая комедия 21 века. И вы сами сказали, что разработка фильма для России марафон, и мне интересно, как на протяжении разработки менялся сценарий Стива Конрада, что пришлось выбрать по соображению бюджета или рабочий процесс, что было оригинальный сценарий, что не попало в финальную картину. Спасибо.
That's a good question. It was a long process working on the script with Steve, because I felt he wrote a great script that had all these amazing ideas in it, but a lot of it was just trying to figure out how to hone the story and follow the story so that you could really follow the journey of this character. And a lot of things were hard to actually do in a movie for real, budget-wise, that we couldn't afford. So we spent a lot of time trying different fantasies and working on ways to tell the story that I felt were believable, so that you could follow Walter's journey and really believe that he could do all the things he does in the movie for real. And then we had a lot of back and forth on fantasies, because the fantasies, the sky was the limit with our imagination of what we could do, but then the budget would sort of always be this realistic thing we had to deal with. So we ended up cutting back the fantasies a lot when we were writing the script. When he was writing the script and I was working with him. And then as we started to shoot the movie, we ended up having to cut some scenes down also as we were shooting because of the budget, especially when we were in Iceland, because we ended up going over budget a little bit in New York, and then we needed to scale back in Iceland. And then I found in editing the movie that actually the fantasies were too long, and the audience really wanted to watch the story move forward. So it's actually good, I think, that we can scale back on the fantasies. And we tried to get as specific as we could with the fantasies and have them support this love story that's going on with the girl that that he really likes, that he can't really connect with. And so we learned a lot as we were developing the script and as we were shooting, and even as we were editing and going back and filming more after we edited to really try to focus the story, those fantasies and the love story, Walter's growth as a person.
Я хотел бы добавить, если Бен не возражает. Во-первых, спасибо большое за лучшую комедию 21 века, но мы в Фоксе вместе с создателями картины позиционируем этот фильм гораздо что-то большее и гораздо более глубокое, чем комедия. Это выше жанра комедии. Это, наверное, больше все-таки приключения, романтическая история маленького человека, который на самом деле, любой маленький человек может быть сильным и великим. Недаром мы картину выпускаем на территории бывшего Советского Союза, за исключением некоторых стран, практически тем же масштабом и форматом, каким мы выпускаем самые крепкие, самые большие блокбастеры. Картина будет выходить на более чем 1600 экранов, это больше, чем 1000 кинотеатров или локаций. Мы делаем очень большую ставку на этот фильм и уверены, что это из новогодних картин, большого количества, которые будут показываться публике, это будет одна из лучших, одна из самых любимых картин.
Wow, no pressure.
Try and do this alone, basically.
Sounds good.
I got two parts of my questions. First of all, of course, do you want to do something extraordinary in your life, like Uoltera Mitti? And the second part is, we, our country, Russia, we got a very strong nature. North and Siberia, for example, why didn't you shoot in Russia some big scenes? And do you want to make something in the future in Russia?
Yeah. Well, Russia is a very cinematic place for sure. I mean, just coming in, just flying in here for the first time in the snow. It's very dramatic. It's very beautiful. And there's a great history of Russia with the arts. For me, it's just even as an acting student, starting out in New York, reading Stanislavski and Boleslavsky, those for us the acting teachers who really made such a huge difference in acting in the 20th century. So I feel a connection with that on that level, and I would love to come here and shoot something someday. I was just thinking about movies that have taken place here, and like as you say, the strong nature of people here and the struggle that can be, I imagine, over history to live here. So that'd be great. It'd be wonderful to do that someday. And in terms of imagination for me, I mean, and things I've imagined doing in my life, for me, I always wanted to be a filmmaker and to be able to be making films, making a film on this scale, traveling the way we did with this one, and having the experiences we had was a dream come true for me. And I look forward to doing that more. And then just getting connected in ways to life, traveling and things that are outside of show business for me are interesting also. And especially as I'm a guy with a couple of kids, wanting to travel with my kids and go to different places and expose ourselves to different things in the world, different experiences. What's that? What was the first part?
Do you want to make something like Uoltera Mitti?
What I want to do? Well, I guess I was trying to say it's for me, making movies is my, that's my dream. So I'm actually getting to live it out, and you get to do different things that you never get to do. Like for me, jumping in the ocean and doing those scenes in the ocean, that was kind of a Uoltera Mitti experience for real. Especially when it was just alone in the ocean and the camera would go away, or just be floating in the ocean waiting for the camera to come back. Hoping they would come back.
Здравствуйте, Вадим. Скажите, пожалуйста, у вас плотный график, насколько мы знаем, но собираетесь ли вы посетить что-то в Москве, запланирована ли какая-то прогулка, экскурсия, и что это будет, если это известно? Спасибо.
Yeah, well, I'm only here for really such a short time. We got in last night and we did sort of an impromptu trip to Red Square and walk around, which I was just amazed by, just the scale of it. Really, really amazing place. And I think I was going to try to visit Lennon's tomb today, but I hear it's closed. I think I need to come back here and spend more time with everybody.
Здравствуйте, Бен. Мой вопрос не про Митти, а про вашу новую режиссерскую работу. Помоги мне распространять добро. Скажите, пожалуйста, подробнее об этой картине.
Well, actually, I haven't committed to a project as a director as of now, but there are a few different projects that we're working on, things that I can't really talk about because I don't know which one we're going to be working on as of now. But I hope to direct more in the future, more frequently in the future than I have in the past.
Hi, it's me again. I'm over here.
Hi. Hey, how are you?
I was wondering, is that true that you you to take some lessons from our directors, or Stanislav's step method system. I don't know, maybe once you will tell your actors, like, I don't believe you with this famous word.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like actually the Stanislavski, what's quote unquote called the method in our country, is really, I mean, influenced movies in such a huge way, because it really was the beginning of naturalistic acting, and acting that came out of connecting with real feelings, as opposed to people sort of playing it. Some cases more theatrical, and I think that started with the actors in New York at the actor studio in the 50s, like O'Brайen, who started that, acting that way, which became real, screen acting, that now is sort of, I think, just established itself as what it means to be real and good on screen. So, I'll take some lessons, sure. You want to teach me? You know somebody? Okay, very cool.
Расскажите, пожалуйста, немного про работу своего героя. То есть он работает в медиахолдинге, который претерпевает изменения, то есть, соответственно, герой попадает в какую-то депрессию. Расскажите, пожалуйста, что вы лично думаете о будущем современных медиа, как они трансформируются, ну и о роли фотографов, журналистов и людей, которые творческой профессии. Спасибо.
Yeah, well, in the movie, Walter works at Life magazine, which, in real life, sort of transitioned out of business and became an online repository of photographs. And that setting for the film, I thought was really very relevant, because we are at a point in our world now where we're kind of switching over from this analog world to a totally digital world. And I feel I'm of that generation where I remember growing up before all of this, before computers and cell phones and social media and all of it. And it has changed the way that people experience each other. And I think that's something that's very real. And in terms of the media and magazines, that magazines are now going out of business, and then all the media that we see is really on screens and not really tangible. To me, that just changes the people's attention spans, the way that they spend time taking things in, how much quicker it is, how much more they get distracted by different things. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I know how I have the cell phone and computer and television, all these different things. And I see my kids who have all their different screens. I think it's affected us. It's affected us in the way that we take things in. And I don't know what the future is for media or for magazines, but I know that when we were researching the movie and researching Life magazine, we went to look at all these amazing photographs and these amazing issues of life that exist now. You can pick up a magazine from 1945 and you're holding a piece of history, and it actually, it's tangible, it's real. That's not going to exist anymore. And I think for Walter in the movie, he's a guy who cares about those images, cares about real things, and his job is going away because that's going away, and that sort of, is one of the triggers of the movie. And I think, people are existing in an economy now where jobs are going away for different reasons. That's one of them. It's something that feels very modern and real to me that I think people can connect with.
Хотела бы сказать огромное спасибо за фильм. Он реально очень-очень-очень вдохновляет. Хочется что-то делать после этого фильма и как-то решиться изменить свою жизнь. Поэтому следующий вопрос такой. Хотели бы вы, как и ваш герой, на что-то решиться, что-то изменить, на что вы, например, о чем вы, например, всю жизнь думали, но не могли этого сделать?
That I couldn't do it?
Да.
I guess, I feel like, moments come up in your life and you either grab them or you don't. And if you have that regret that you live with, it can be a really hard thing. I feel like I've always tried to make decisions in the moment to, I tried to go through things. But I remember when I was 15 years old, like 14 or 15 years old, I was living in New York, and there was a documentary filmmaker who lived in my building, worked in my building, and I wanted to make movies, and he offered me a chance to go on a trip. They were making a documentary in Africa to go help out and be on the crew, and I said no because I don't know why I said no at the time. Maybe I was scared or something. I don't know. But I always regretted that because I thought that would have been an amazing experience. Probably would have changed my life at that moment. But for whatever reason, I didn't do it. That's the only one I can think of.
Три крайних вопроса, и мы будем расходиться на индивидуальные.
Хотел развить один из предыдущих вопросов по поводу журнала Life. Life — это легенда мирового СМИ. Насколько журнал, показанный в фильме, соответствует журналу в реальности? Как тесно вы работали с редакцией? И есть ли у вашего героя какой-то прототип в реальной редакции?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing we did when we started to work on the movie. Was we got the research photos, and we went and looked at the original offices, and we actually shot in a Time-Life building lobby in New York City on 6th Avenue, which is basically as it was when it was built and designed in the mid-50s. And that was really important in the movie for me, the sort of the architectural sort of graphic nature of those offices and that design from that period of time, especially as it related to the history of the original short story by James Thurber, which was in the New Yorker in 1939, and I thought there was sort of a lineage with the history of New York magazines and how Life magazine sort of related to that. And we took our cues in terms of the design of the movie from the pictures that we saw of those offices and tried to design the offices in a way that was inspired by that, maybe taking some liberties, but really that sort of graphic nature of those offices was the visual cue for us on how to sort of put Walter in this world that he existed in, that he needed to break out of. So there was a lot there that we took, and it was important for us to give the feeling in the movie that Walter was in a world that he needed to break out of. And I felt like that world sort of was there with that magazine and the way those officers looked.
Скажите, пожалуйста, в фильме очень много фигурирует Шон Пенн. Каково было с ним вообще работать, даже на этих больших промежутках? Спасибо.
Well, I've always been a big fan of Sean's, and one of my favorite actors, and she's one of the best actors we have, or have had ever. And I felt he was really right for that role because he represents creative integrity. And as a person, he's kind of a maverick, and has integrity as a person, and I felt an audience feels that about him. And so working with him was really exciting for me. He's also a really great guy. He's got a great sense of humor, which I think you see a little bit in the movie. He is a filmmaker, he's a director, so he really understands the process. And we were shooting up on a glacier in Iceland when we shot that scene, and it was sort of tough conditions to get up and get down the mountain on that day to shoot that. And he was so helpful as a filmmaker. I think he understands the process, the way that he approached it. He's made such adventurous films himself that I felt like he was just was there as a partner as opposed to just an actor who was just coming there to do that scene. So I was really happy to listen.
Я так понимаю, это последний вопрос.
Да.
Представьте, пожалуйста, такую ситуацию, в которой в каком-то будущем времени у вас есть возможность показать своим детям всего лишь один фильм свой. Какой бы это был фильм?
Wow, good question. They've already seen it. What one? I don't know. It's a good question because it's hard to encapsulate everything you do down into one movie. Though I love Zoolander, it probably wouldn't be Zoolander because that would be too confusing to them. But I don't know. Up to now, for me, Mitty, for me, represents sort of a lot of what I wanted to do as a filmmaker. So, I'd say right now, it might be Mitty.
Thank you. Друзья, поблагодарим Бена за то, что это первое и надеемся, что ваше общение не просто интервью будет приятно. Бен, спасибо. Thank you very much. All right, thank you guys.